Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Dean. How you doing?
Okay.
Hi, Becky.
Hey, Sarah, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm finishing an apple, so that's why I was not. Well,
Chomping away.
right?
Hi, how you doing?
Doing just ducky. Thank you. Well, that was a nice quick one for you last night, huh?
Well, thank goodness. Yeah, because it was going to be painful. Wait till next month.
Oh, yeah. We'll just, everybody will have to buckle up.
Oh, dear.
right?
Always something.
Well, it is. And I'm just glad that we have the people involved with it. We do.
Oh, dear.
Namely, you at the helm, honey.
Oh, trying to get through the year.
Yep. Well, you will. I have no doubt. I have faith in you.
Oh,
All right. Well, I'm gonna go blank and mute. So
okay. Hi. I see you're on, Gail. Mike Pratt, are you on? No, I don't know who that. No, I thought that was Mike's number.
Let's see.
Hey, Andy.
Hey there.
How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
That's my yeah, button.
I don't see Peter yet. It's usually early. Mike Pratt, are you on? You, the 978-526? Swear he is.
Sarah, this is Jack Burke.
Oh, hi, Jack.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I'm 5264143.
Okay, thank you. Got it.
You're welcome.
We're still waiting for a quorum.
How was your meeting last night, Sarah?
Only an hour.
Oh, wow.
90 School Street continued, so that was helpful. Because that was going to be long. And no meetings the first week in March, I realized.
Wow.
Yeah.
Don't get used to it.
Don't know what I'm gonna do with the week, you
A rarity for you.
know. I know. Did I send the agenda out?
I got it on the website.
Yeah, it was on the website.
I know Mark's coming.
Yeah, Mike's finding in.
There's Mike.
Oh, good. Maurice has troubles getting here at 7. Usually on the road.
Oh, we have 4, right? So
Yeah, so it looks, let me just look and see if I've got an email from anybody.
I will be right back. I'm just grabbing some papers off my printer.
Okay. Oh, Mark Weld said he's calling in. He's having troubles connecting via the internet. So he's coming. He's just having one of those nights.
yep. Just when you think you got it figured out.
It's just crazy.
Sarah, just let me know who you have. Please.
Okay, so I have Dean, Andy, and Mike Pratt. You're on, right? Mike's iPhone? It doesn't usually show up that way. That's why.
Yep,
Okay.
I'm here.
Okay, great connection. Okay.
You got a so-so connection, Mike. No reflection on you, though.
So we have Gail, we have myself, Dean, Andy, and Mike. Mark Weld is attempting to get in. So we have 4. So I think that we will go ahead and start. With that, I will call the Finance Committee meeting to order on Thursday, February 17th at 7:05 p.m. The first item on our agenda is to review the fiscal year 23 operating budget for Board of Health and the health agent position request. Greg did send us materials today. Did everyone on the board receive those?
Yep, I have them.
Okay,
Yes, I just got them. I just was looking at them right now.
okay. So is somebody going to explain this to us?
Yes.
Or why don't we have Paula start off in terms of the need and what they're hoping for?
Okay,
Well, thank you to everybody who's here tonight. I'm going to just read a small paragraph that comes from an executive summary at the state level, which helps to launch us into this conversation. And it says that many of the Massachusetts local health departments are already struggling to meet existing mandates to address communicable diseases, food safety, housing, sewage, well water, and environmental hazards. But in the 21st century, their list of duties has ballooned to include protecting the environment, planning for natural and man-made disasters, preventing new insect and tick-borne diseases, reducing substance addiction, reducing the prevalence of chronic diseases, and improving mental health. The Commonwealth's local public health system has mostly been unable to keep up with these new demands. So in order to help the board understand all of the things that the Board of Health does, to help the Finance Committee understand all of the things that the Board of Health does, we put together this bulleted list that Greg sent to you this morning. And we have what we call there's three buckets, if you will, of specialties within the board. We have our public health sector and the list- excuse me? Did someone have a question?
No, keep going, Paula. I think somebody's not on mute that should be.
Greg
Okay.
looks frozen.
Yeah,
Oh,
I thought Greg started to say something, but then he froze.
He started to say something and then he gets zapped by the freeze.
Okay.
Forge ahead, I'd say.
well,
Yeah.
when he gets unfrozen, we'll see what it is that he was wanting. So the public health bucket, if you will, the animal inspector, even though he or she is under the police umbrella, they still have to report to the Board of Health, because if there was a rabies bite or if there's some disease that's being spread, it comes through the Board of Health. And then if there's anybody in town that has goats or horses or even chickens, that is also a permit that comes through the Board of Health. And we keep a census too of animals. And then during the summer, we do twice a week beach water testing. We have housing complaints and inspections. If there's somebody who's living in a property and is a tenant and they have an issue with the property, the Board of Health addresses that. We do food licensing. When you go to the restaurants and you're served cold beer or hot food, it's the Board of Health that inspects those restaurants to make sure that their refrigerators are cold enough, that their hand washing stations are appropriate, and a whole long list of other things. But we also do the school cafeterias and camps, and when a festival comes to town, all of those, the food caravans have to come and be inspected by the Board of Health as well. We regulate household hazardous waste collection. We regulate tobacco sales and licensing. I'm getting towards the end of that list, but there's something that says NS/CA coalition participation. This coalition was established after 9/11, and the coalition is responsible for emergency planning. And I'll get into a little bit more of that in a little bit. If somebody's going to open a new restaurant, we do their plan reviews. We make sure that the way that their restaurant is being fitted has the sinks for cleaning of mops and things of that nature versus the sinks for cleaning of dishes. We're responsible for public education. We're responsible for mosquito control, and mosquito control has become more complex because of the outbreaks of EEE. And we also do camp licensing and inspections. So in the summertime, when the MAC has summer camps for children, when the Brookwood School, when Manchester Sailing, all those summer camps are inspected by the board to make sure they have the necessary requirements for safety. And we also do pool inspections. So at the MAC, we have to inspect that pool. At Essex County Club, that pool is inspected to make sure that the water is clean. And so that's our public health, a sampling of the public health. And then for what we call the land side, when people renovate a home or build a new home or plan to sell a home, if they're on a Title V septic system, which means they're not connected to town sewer, they have a in-ground plant, if you will, sewage treatment plant in their backyard, and that gets inspected for multiple reasons. As I mentioned, for the transfer of the property, mostly if someone is adding on to their house, they have to prove to us that the septic system is large enough and is functioning before the building permit will be approved by the office to move on to the next office. That has a whole lot of detail that goes along with it. If it's a new septic system, we review the plans. If it's a repair to a septic system, the Board of Health reviews the plans. If somebody, before they can design a new septic system, they have to do soil testing. Because systems, we determine where groundwater is by testing the soil, and the soil has modeling, and that tells us where the groundwater is, and it tells us where is a safe place to install this system in the ground. So you're not installing something in groundwater that will eventually end up into a wetland. And for years now, since 1995, when Title V was implemented, for years, Ellen, our Board of Health Administrator, has been mapping out the town and very sensitive areas, homes on the water, near the water. Over time, we've taken, and I've been on the board on and off since the mid 1990s, so I have a lot of recollection of all of this. We would send letters out to all these homeowners and ask them to please have their septic systems inspected, because a lot of the old homes would have laundries that just direct drained right into the ocean. And a lot of these septic systems were built close to the ocean, which now is not allowed anymore for obvious reasons. So this is all done by the Board of Health as well. And we have to review the building permits to make sure people don't build a house that's too big for what their piece of land can handle in terms of a septic system. And if they're not near town water, they have to install a well. So we have to review the well permits too, to make sure they're located far enough away from pools, septic systems, the house itself. So there's a process for that too. And we implemented a septic loan program for people who might not be able to afford to replace their septic system, but need to because it's failing and endangering some sensitive resource area. And then we have our public health nurse who does seasonal and episodic vaccinations clinics. She does MAVEN disease surveillance. If there's an outbreak of measles or mumps, it gets reported, and then that case is followed up on. Emergency planning ties into the coalition participation. We do food outbreak testing. We consult with school nurses, both public and private schools. With the flu clinics that we do every year, we have to be reimbursed for the vaccine. So there's a process for that. That's done by the nurse. The nurse also does involved in camp licensing, camp inspections, news releases, health education, and reporting to the state. And of course, ever since COVID came along, that has been a whole new separate workload that the board has been managing. initially, when COVID first started, we're still doing contact tracing, not as much as before, because with home testing, not all the cases of COVID get reported through the state's reporting system. But from the very early days of COVID, as soon as somebody was tested positive and reported to the state, our office, our department immediately went into action, doing contact tracing and advising patients of their quarantine requirements. And then when immunizations became available, we were involved with coordinating and offering COVID shots. And we have to attend Department of Public Health meetings weekly since COVID has happened. And then there's also the coalition is involved with this as well. And then the other things, there are other things we take care of, like disposal of needles and arbovirus and updates to the Board of Health. So that's just an overview, a brief overview with really not diving too much into the details of everything, but that's a brief overview of what the Board of Health does. And a lot of people really aren't aware of how many facets of the community the Board of Health reaches. So we wanted to start off this request by explaining ourselves a little bit and explaining why we feel it's very important to add some staff to the board. The board is understaffed right now. There are certain things that we can't do. We haven't been doing private well water testing, which is something the board used to do. We're not able to send a department head. At the moment, our board does not have a department head, which is a very important point. We have Ellen, who's our public health administrator. We have a public health nurse, Pam Crean, and a health agent would serve as our department head, but we do not have a health agent, so we do not have a department head. And the department head and the nurse are responsible for going to the coalition meetings for emergency planning. All towns participate. So we usually can only send the nurse. And the coalition is, Tom Kehoe used to go on our behalf, but he doesn't anymore. And he's, quite frankly, I mean, he does so much for the town, but the types of issues that the coalition meeting are dealing with really are better suited to somebody who's involved with public health and on a daily basis. One of the things that they cover are smallpox outbreak and response to, natural and unnatural disasters. And we only have one vote in the coalition where we should have two. And not having a department head sometimes causes breakdowns in communication because people at the state level who want to reach out to our board don't really have that point person to reach out to. Ellen gets some of the communication we're supposed to receive. And then sometimes Greg is the person that they contact because we don't have, that person in our board. And I think Greg has enough to do without worrying about emails from the state about Board of Health issues. And also the way we've been managing for so long is by contracting out services. We hire out an engineer to review our septic plans. And sometimes we have to lean on the engineer more than we would need to if we had a health agent. Depending on the qualifications and skills of the health agent, we would either be able to stop contracting out all of our restaurant inspections or stop contracting out somebody to deal with our housing complaints or any nuisance complaints, quite frankly. Right now, it's all contracted out, and Ellen holds down the fort and delegates the work and sort of cleans up the mess afterwards, but it's really not a proper way for a board to run. And I think during COVID, it has been exposed that a lot of boards of health are understaffed, not just the town of Manchester. There are many boards of health that are understaffed, and the state has appropriated millions of dollars to get our public boards of health systems into the 21st century. So I hope that this is helpful in understanding why we would like to request more staffing in the Board of Health. And the other details that we shared were notes for the budget. So at this time, I would like to see if anybody has any questions, and I'll answer those questions. And then if you like, we can dive into the numbers.
Does anybody have questions so far regarding the responsibilities of the Board of Health?
I think
Hey,
I
Sarah.
understand generally, but I was wondering functionally, you know, if the requested hire goes forward, how do you see that? Like, what's the difference for, I guess I understand, you know, by what you said that there's shortcomings to it, but what are the things that you would
Sure.
prioritize as getting to
Thank
that
you.
you're not getting to
Well,
today?
that's a great question. So if we had a full-time health agent, we would not hire a professional engineer to, okay, this really is a good question because it helps us to explain the health agent position. So health agents are, a full-time health agent would probably be pretty hard to come by because they have such a mix of skills. They have to have enough engineering knowledge to be able to review plans. They have to have licenses in public health inspection, and they have to be able to understand the housing code. There are multiple regulations that they have to be knowledgeable about to be able to take on all three buckets of work that we do within the Board of Health. So there are a lot of different licenses that are required, and Ellen could probably help me out in listing them. But for instance, if we were to have a full-time health agent, that person would review the septic plans. They would schedule appointments to go out to all of our restaurants annually and inspect all the restaurants, inspect the camps. They would go out to soil tests to witness the soil test being done. They would, when the septic system is being installed, they go out to the job site and witness the installation to make sure the tank is set right, to make sure the leaching field is being built according to the plan. The health agent would spend a lot of time in and out of the office doing the field work associated with all of these inspections. Ellen is the one who goes and gets the beach water samples twice a week during the summertime. She creates all the licenses within the board, all the paperwork, all the applications for the restaurants to renew their licenses, for the septic system installers to renew their permits, for the septic system inspections inspectors to renew their permits. So if we had a health agent at the moment, what we do is we hire a person who specializes in public health. That person, her name is Bobby Cody, and she's the one that goes out to do all the restaurant inspections, housing complaints, inspect the apartment that somebody's complaining about. The animal inspector follows up on calls about rabid animals. And I'm actually not quite sure who does our barn book inspections. But the point is, rather than subcontracting all this work out, it would be done by the person working in the office.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate the full explanation. I see also there's some notes that were provided at the bottom of the spreadsheet for options B and C.
Yes,
So that kind of aligns with what you're saying. Thank you.
you're welcome. So-
Dean, excuse me, Paul, I need to call on other members of the board. Okay. Dean, did you have a question of her?
Well, that was a very good presentation, and it shed to light a lot of important things that the Board of Health does. And the notes that you provided really answered the questions I had about what the professional services were. I don't see the budget going up that much this year. Is that because the grants are offsetting the proposed position, or it sounds like we're trying to hire more people, but I didn't see that reflected in this budget much.
Oh, well, Greg, would you like me to answer that, or would you like to answer that?
So either way, Paula, it doesn't matter. I'm happy to.
Sure.
So Dean, what you saw in the budget book was status quo, no change.
I see, okay.
But what was submitted today with those options B and C are the two different ways of providing a health agent. One was full-time and one is part-time.
Okay. So I just need to update the information. Okay. Thank
Do you
you.
have that spreadsheet, Dean?
I do. I have it. I just opened it.
Okay.
So
Because,
It was in the email that we got today, I think. or
yeah, and the bottom line was status quo was 126,514. A full-time agent is 170,988. And the part-time solution is 166,500.
Okay, I
The
got
bottom line, okay.
you. Yep, okay.
Mark, did you have a question?
Sarah, I have a question. And this is Mike.
Mike. Sure.
So just keeping it 30,000 foot level, but can we get a comparison of what we look like compared to, other quote unquote comparable towns? I don't know whether it's Essex, Hamilton, Wenham, whatever, both, current status, and then, if we did one of these choices, how would we look compared to other similar towns?
Essex at the moment has a full-time health agent and a full-time administrative assistant. So compared to Essex, we have a lot less than what they have. Ellen, do you know how we compare to Rockport?
Hi, everyone. This is Ellen.
Ellen.
Rockport has 2 nurses covering and a regional nurse. Rockport has a part-time health agent and an inspector. And also for Essex, the part that got left off was Essex, in addition to having a full-time health agent and a nurse and a full-time clerk, they also have a part-time inspector. That's a contract worker.
Thank you.
That's
So
two.
even currently, we're less resourced than both Rockport and Essex.
Yes, by a lot.
Saving money, Mike. Let me see. Maury, did you have a question?
Not at this time. I'm all set. Thanks.
Thanks. And Mark, I kind of called on you, but
Nope, I think I'm good for right now. Thank you.
okay.
So to move on, if you all have the spreadsheet in front of you, we have a status quo, we have an option B, and we have an option C. I would like to advocate for option C. And the reason I would like to advocate for option C is that in the 90s, when I was on the board, we did have a health agent. And it was great that we had a health agent until the health agent left. And when the health agent left, there was a huge void, and it was very, very difficult to find another health agent, which is how we started on this path to where we are today of contracting out services. And I've spent a lot of time looking at this, studying it, and understanding how the board operates. And at this time, with the way the board is, with the way our office is structured, option C would be a very good option for us because number one, it's really hard to find a health agent that can do everything, but less hard to find a health agent that can cover either land or public health. Now, we could put a bid out for, an employment request out for somebody to cover land, but quite frankly, we have a system in place that's working pretty well. We have an engineer that's been doing the town's land side for a long time. There are more people, I think, more of a pool, a larger pool to choose from to find somebody that specializes in public health. Ellen, can you please remind me what licenses you have to be a qualified public health agent that specializes in public health?
Hi, this is Ellen. Those licenses vary by the specialty of the person. So some inspectors and health agents are certified health officers. Some are registered sanitarians, more on the land side. Some are licensed soil evaluators. And then there are people who have certifications in lead determination, housing inspection, and food inspections. So it really depends on the individual and which side of the equation they came from and what their specialties are. There's no one designation on the public health side.
Thanks, Ellen. I was just forgetting about the certifications. So we truly believe that we would have the most success finding a part-time health agent that specializes in public health. And if we were to do that, we would be able to shave down our contracted services, not entirely eliminate them, but we would be able to shave them down because we would do all of the things that fall under the public health list that we gave you would be done in-house, as well as well permits. There's some things on the land side too that could be done in-house by a public health, half-time public health agent. And should this person leave their job, we at least still have 50% of what we do covered. And I will tell you, the land side is very time sensitive because usually it involves somebody wanting to sell their house or somebody wanting to buy their house or somebody wanting to renovate their house or somebody wanting to build a new house. And the clock ticks from the minute they drop off their plans. And if they don't get what they want when they want it, it's a big problem. So for all those reasons, we're happy to talk about and hash out, the difference between full-time and half-time. But I feel very, very strongly, based on all of the years that I've spent on the Board of Health, that the half-time model would be the best model for us.
Thank you.
And sincerely hope that the Finance Committee can see the value and the importance of this request.
Thank you. Do any members of the board have additional questions of the Board of Health? You know, my plan is that in next week's meeting, we'll be going over all of the requests for additional staffing and look at the impact on the long-range plan.
I also thought of one more thing. Greg, could you explain to the Finance Committee your thoughts on this being funded, this extra 40,000?
Sure, Paula. So we do have the ability to tap into the ARPA money, the American Recovery Plan Act funds. And we have we can extend those dollars for 4 years if we want to. So the extra roughly $40,000 that is needed, you could decide to use our monies for full 4 years. That's one option, and then in year 5, we would then need to pick up the full tab, or you could, start off at 100% ARPA money and slowly wean ourselves off of it, so that by year 5 it's not quite as a big hit as it would otherwise be. But I mean, out of close to $38 million in total expenditures, 40,000 is not an insurmountable amount.
And Greg, could you share with the Finance Committee how much ARPA money we've had to use throughout COVID to supplement the Board of Health?
Right, so between CARES and ARPA and some additional grant monies that the state made available, we spent north of 61,000 in additional hours for both for Ellen's position and the nurse, but most of that's for the nurse.
Thank you. Maury, do you have any additional questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I guess this is a question for you, Greg. Are these labor costs on the spreadsheet loaded?
No.
So if they were, what would those numbers look like?
So you basically add high 20s to each one.
What do you
Okay.
mean to each one, Greg? Oh, to the 2 options?
To the 2 positions.
But I thought there's only 1 position being added.
Right, so that we're already paying for the 1.
Right.
So that would not be new. But Moy asked if they were fully loaded in this spreadsheet, and they're not. We show benefit costs elsewhere.
Okay.
So
So-
the increase would be 60 if you included the benefits for the health agent as far as an additional cost.
Yeah, a little north of that,
Okay.
assuming a family plan, but that's assuming
Yep.
that the person is on a family health plan.
Okay.
So
Another,
would the part-time status mean that there's less benefits versus a full-time agent, or there's no difference between those two?
Goes
If
over-
hours, if you're over 20 hours, you're eligible for health insurance, and that's the
Okay, so,
biggest number.
yeah,
The
anything over 20, okay.
the retirement number would be a little less for someone part-time versus.
So what you're saying, Greg, is on option C, if we'd add about 20K to that salary line?
Upper 20s.
Yeah, a little higher, closer to 26.
Okay.
also Maury, to point out another could be, the full-time health agent the salary is listed here as 84,000. I think that's low to find somebody who has all the qualifications that you would need to be a full-time health agent to attract them. Danvers has been advertising. Ellen, do you know how long Danvers has been advertising for their full-time health agent?
Hi, Paula, this is Ellen. Danvers did fill that spot, but it was vacant for many, many months.
And their pay scale ranged from 75,000 to 101,000. So this 84 number was somewhat in the middle. I think that it would probably have to be higher to attract somebody to our community. And also, if it's not the same hourly rate, if you were to divide that full-time 84,000 in half and multiply it by 20, if you were to do that as an hourly rate and multiply it by 26 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, the option C number would be 54,600 and not 47,500. So, I mean, these are best guess numbers to show you where we're going, to give you a rough idea, but exactly where they end up, I would be lying if I didn't think they would be higher.
Well, you understand if something goes into the budget, that's the budget. It's not a what if, it's not a guesstimate. It's what you get in the budget if something's approved. So you can't, you know. So you should be giving us accurate numbers is what I'm saying.
Can I ask a quick question? This is
Yeah, go
Mike.
ahead, Mike.
So, you know, I got the explanation about the other comparable towns nearby, Essex, Rockport, right? And like you said, they're more highly resourced staffed than us. I mean, is there any kind of opportunity to look at like regionalization in the sense that, you know, if they have the extra bandwidth and they're not, you know, using those resources 100%, I'm just, you know.
To answer your question, in the 1990s, we had a regional health agent with Essex. We shared a health agent with Essex. And it was extremely problematic because the two towns do things very differently. And the health agent felt like a yo-yo going back and forth. And so the region was disbanded. It's not as if it hasn't been thought about or tried. Of course, it is many years later, but for the moment.
Just, I mean, not to get into the weeds, but just if you could keep it at 30,000 foot, why would that be? I would just think that the regulations would be very cut and dry, right? Like, you know, septic testing and well testing, it all seems pretty, right, black and white. I mean, I wouldn't think it could vary too much town to town.
It does.
Ellen, you have your hand raised?
Unmute. Ellen's muted.
Okay, sorry about that. I wanted to share, this is Ellen, I wanted to share that Essex has a full-time health agent, but they were mandated to have that by the state. And that position is full. They even filled it up with additional responsibilities in the past couple of years.
Why were they mandated to have the position by the state?
By a sewer consent order from DEP.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean,
Did the state-
obviously I picked Essex, but obviously it could be Rockport or Hamilton or Wenham. I mean, you know, and I take the point that whatever, this was tried X years ago, but I don't know, it just seems like it's something to think about at least.
Andy, do you have any more questions?
Oh, I'm all set. Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, Maury?
Sir, I had one other question. It
Okay.
sounds like hiring these folks is somewhat challenging, and I wonder if retaining them is also an issue. And I just bring that up because I know in some departments we hire and train and people move on. And the question is, could we find somebody and keep them? Or is it going to be kind of a revolving door potentially?
It's more a scarcity issue than it is a revolving door. There just doesn't seem to be as many people who have gone into this line of work. I think Ellen could probably shed some light on, because she's connected to other communities and departments and hears, Ellen, if you could add anything to Maury's question, that would be helpful.
So I think what I would add is that on the North Shore, there are a lot of agents who have dug in and spent a lot of years and committed to an individual community. Beverly, Rockport. So I think that has happened, but Paul is right. There's not a lot of people entering into the field who are younger. And also through COVID, there has been just a large number of people fleeing public health and the demands and the stress of the past 2 years related to COVID. So I think the key to me is being able to have the resources to make an offer to a qualified person, including keeping them. When you're in a smaller department, you tend to be asking a health agent to do a wider range of responsibilities than in a larger town. In a larger town, the director is more administrative and has inspectors layered underneath them. When you're in a smaller town like Manchester, you're asking that person with a full set of scales, a full set of qualifications to go out there and get in that pit for soil testing and go out and do a restaurant inspection. And most of those full qualified people are instead in jobs where they're the director. So that's why you see the one side versus other side of this. And so in most departments, there's a health agent supplemented by an inspector. And I think that helps with retention because there's more than one body, there's more than one person, and there's a little spread of duty and work. So I think health departments in general, the past year have had a very hard time hiring and finding candidates. So I think Manchester, if they decide, just needs to put their best foot forward to be able to attract and retain someone.
Thank you. Mark Well, did you have any more questions?
No.
Okay.
I'm good, thank you.
Thanks. Jeffrey Bob Turner, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to clarify, excuse me, on the information that Paula was giving you about the 54.6 for option C, health agent salary. That 24 hours is 65% of a FTE. And when this spreadsheet was originally put together, the full-time equivalent salary for the health agent was much lower. That was just adjusted up to try and hit the lower mid-range of what Danvers was offering for a full-time equivalent. So if you look at Danvers's salary range, they were in the high 70s to over $100,000. And the salary of 84,000 is not the lowest, but it's not even in the middle. So the 54,600 is 65% of 84,000.
We don't have that number. We don't have that number. We don't have that number. We have a 47,502 number.
I understand.
Oh, okay.
This was an adjustment that was brought to Paula's attention earlier today after this spreadsheet had already gone on.
Oh, thank you.
That's why there was a discrepancy. You were saying you should have your correct numbers. Your numbers should be accurate.
Okay.
It should be at 54.6.
Thank you.
It's been a very long time since the board has been able to hire somebody for this position. So it's a little bit challenging to know where to be. It's challenging because we really, really want this to happen. So we're trying to be conservative, but on the other hand, we would like to be successful. If the position is granted, we would like to be successful in finding somebody to fill the role and add to the staff of the Board of Health to make our department run more smoothly, run smoothly, but to be stronger, to have a stronger board department.
Thank you. Greg, or Andrea, can we have updated spreadsheets on this before our meeting next week?
Yeah, no, we can.
Okay,
The logic behind a slightly lower hourly for the part-time person is that that person does not have the same breadth of skills.
okay,
But, I understand the challenge. We have challenge in every hiring situation right now. There's a dearth of qualified applicants.
Another point where to help, we're obviously conscientious about asking for more money. And another thing that we're looking into is in lieu of doing our hazardous waste once annually, which is extremely important. We're looking into a company that Marblehead uses. And the residents of Marblehead will call the company, arrange for a pickup. The company will go and pick up their hazardous waste and direct bill the household. That if we can establish that for our community, and I don't know if we can, but if we could, that would save a $7,000 line item. But hazardous waste, I happen to be close to this topic because I do sell real estate, and I have a client that took their hazardous waste with them because there was absolutely no place for them to dispose of it when they sold. And they tried, and it's just the timing of the timing. There are no pickups in any town near us right now, and the actual hazardous waste collection site that people would go to, for some reason, didn't have availability either. So if you don't want people just throwing their oil paints and thinners and everything else in the trash, we have to have a safe way for them to get rid of it.
so when do you plan to make that decision?
Well, we're looking into it now. Alan has been trying to reach the contractor that does this for Marblehead. And I know she's had a tough time getting through. Alan, is there any updates on that? Were you able to get through to anybody?
So I did successfully get through to the company, which is step one, but after, 5 emails, 3 calls, I actually have gone back to Marblehead and asked while I'm waiting if they would be willing to share their details so that I can share those with you. And that's what I was working on today. And while I was in a regional meeting today, I asked Marblehead to provide that. So hopefully I'll have that in the next couple of days.
Awesome, thank you.
I would also be cognizant about the cost of what Marblehead charges versus the 7,000, because it may very well be that the 7,000 is a better deal for the town.
But they're charging people directly, so the town's not paying.
Well, for the residents of the town, yes, but just a little quick gut check to see if it's a lot more expensive to delegate to the individuals versus, are we, is it more efficient to do as a group?
I obviously I'm just getting the high level, but it sounds better not only financially, but also logistically, right? Because instead of us having to organize all these hazardous waste days, there's this third party company that kind of just takes care of it all, right?
Right.
Well,
So,
it sounds good. Hopefully, if we can get through to them. It sounds good, but it doesn't seem like they're super responsive. So we're already on guard, if you will.
Thank you. Ellen, did you have something to add?
I was just going to add that the way it works in Marblehead, there is still going to be some bit of responsibility to the town in terms of advertising, getting the word out, those sorts of things. But it's quarterly. How it runs is quarterly, and they sign up through the town website onto the person's system. And in the current system, the town pays the entire cost for the resident per car, per household. And in this system, the resident does pay for the full cost. But it's quarterly, so it is, when you are doing it in Marblehead, you're not doing it person by person. It is, they come quarterly and then you sign up for that day every quarter if you need.
Okay. Becky Jakes.
Sorry, Maury, would you rather go ahead as a board member?
No, go right ahead. I'll back clean up.
I had a question, I guess, for Ellen about that. So obviously the company that would be doing the collecting, they've got to be making money somehow, beyond just the collecting they do. Do you know if Marblehead has to guarantee that company a certain amount of business? Quarterly?
Well, those are exactly the answers we're trying to get a hold of. Is there a certain number of people? If you fall below it, will you not come that quarter? So those are the kind of answers we're trying to get. I will say COVID has caused a staffing issue for all of these companies. And even Clean Harbor, who is our usual vendor, who we would be going to this spring, as we have for many years, the entire of the North Shore Cape Ann Coalition has had no response from Clean Harbors. I got my first response this morning after 6 months of trying, and that's the case for all the North Shore towns. So our original plan is also having staffing difficulties.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maury?
Yeah, I guess just sort of a comment and then a question. The comment is, I think Manchester operates at a pretty high level, and I think we're very happy to be doing that. I'd be a little cautious just about pulling out the hazardous waste day, because I think that's a benefit for the community. I think if you divide $7,000 by 26 households, it's about $3 a household. It is an event that gets well publicized, and I think it's, in my opinion, part of being a member of this town. My question is really more to you, Greg. If we go ahead with, say, option C, and we're unable to hire somebody, that would obviously flow through to reserves if that's not used. Do we have more flexibility if we used ARPA money and we were unable to hire somebody as a salaried role, but could go to contract services to fulfill the need for the year? And I'm just kind of looking at which of those two options work better, and I guess minimize flow through to reserves.
Well, so you could approve a budget, but with a revenue stream that basically ARPA was paying for the new agent. And then if that new agent wasn't hired, you wouldn't use ARPA money for that purpose. You would redirect the ARPA money to something else.
Good.
But what if you didn't hire the health agent, and therefore your professional services line has to increase? Can that be covered with ARPA without it being in the budget? The 8,000 that would be reduced from the professional services line.
So I'm hesitating a little bit. I think the answer is yes, you could, but it's a little, so that professional service line is really Title V, right? For the most part. Some food inspection, et cetera. So it's not really COVID related. So that's a little problematic. However, there is more flexibility with the ARPA money. So I still stick with, yes, you can do it with ARPA, because they in the final ruling, they gave much more flexibility for smaller communities like us to use ARPA money as a substitute for monies we've failed to collect because of COVID.
Okay. Does that answer it, Maureen?
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions regarding the Board of Health? Help.
I just have one quick follow-up question on that third-party hazardous waste thing. And I'm just trying to understand, I guess, Maury's comment, because to me, whether we did it internally or whether we outsourced it, there would still be these quarterly town hazardous waste days, right? It's just a question of who's running it or who's collecting the money, or no?
No.
I missed some.
It's who's paying for it. In other words, in the Marblehead situation, the resident pays. In the Manchester situation, Manchester pays.
Yeah, no,
So
I know, I get that side, but I'm saying like real world logistically, there's still physically 4 days a year or whatever, like that part of it is no different, right?
Well, today we only have 1 day in Manchester.
Okay, so it'd be even better then, because we go from 1 to maybe 3 or 4, right?
Yep.
Okay, all right, thanks.
I guess with that, I will thank the Board of Health, Paula and Ellen, for joining us, and we thank you. We'll be looking at this more in depth in a future meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And Gail, in case you haven't figured it out, both Maury and Mark Weld have joined us. I think you figured it out, but that's okay. The next item on the agenda is to review the fiscal year 23 CPC approved projects. And I believe that people received a spreadsheet today from Greg. Is that correct? And I believe if we didn't lose him, we have Jack Burke on the line. Yep.
I am present.
Thanks, Jack. So do people want him to walk through this?
Yep, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
I think it'd
Okay.
be helpful, yeah.
Okay. So if you can just quickly walk through it, Jack, that will help us.
Certainly. Good evening, and I apologize for calling in by phone again. I, like several other people, have technical deficiencies. This year's fiscal year 23 budget had a total of $1,265,553 available. We have approved a slate of grants totaling $1,179,500. And if you look at your spreadsheet to the left, starting up top, you'll see that that's proposed projects. Each of the 3 statutory areas must set aside at least 10% statutory allocation. 58,548 is 10% of the fiscal year 23's new money of 585,480. We do this each year, and most years we spend more than that and do not keep anything in reserves. Going down that list, we have approved the following: a grant of $7,000 to the Bike and Pedestrian Committee for bike racks. We have postponed any action on Sweeney Park fields and bathrooms. We approved $800,000 for the Pine Street field project. We approved $35,000 for the Causeway Brook Sawmill Brook project near the elementary school for rehabilitation there. We approved $7,500 for Open Space Western Woods Research Project, $10,000 for Winthrop Field Drainage Project, $20,000 for pollinator gardens to be determined, areas to be determined by Conservation Commission. Down in community housing, once again, we granted $200,000 to the Manchester Affordable Housing Trust. We declined an application to the Manchester Housing Authority due to for statutory regulations. It is not an allowable application. Going down to number C, restoration of town cemeteries and parks. We have granted $25,000 to the Friends of Trees, who have an ongoing project to landscape all historic cemeteries and parks, and they have a plan that they have given us. And last, the engineering study, Tux Rotunda, that was discussed at your last meeting. We are putting in, we approved $50,000 towards the $106,000, subject to the town budget coming up with the other $56,000. And down below, administration funds of $25,000, of which we've never spent more than 8 or 9, and what we don't spend gets returned every year to the reserves. So that's our slate that has been voted on unanimously by the Community Preservation Committee. Entertain any questions.
Andy, do you have any questions?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Amori?
I was just curious about the open space Western Woods Research and the pollinator gardens. Those two things sort of total about 27,000. I was hoping maybe you could elaborate a little more on what that is or what the town is getting with that.
Sure. Sue Brown came to us. The Open Space Western Woods Research is to do a study on how to use the land that we are rapidly that we've obtained and are rapidly obtaining more through tax title. We've had a project going on for a number of years now through the assessor's office, and the assessor's office has determined which land has taken for tax title and determined that we own a lot more land than had been known about, and the process of putting a plan together for how to use it for trails, for conservation restrictions, et cetera, is underway right now. So that's what that's for. The pollinator gardens came up this year after a successful pollinator garden was put in down by the pedestrian bridge between the two schools by the North Shore Garden Club, and it was determined that we did have funds in reserves that had not been spent specifically for open space in plantings like this, and the North Shore Garden Club, along with the Conservation Committee and the DPW, would run this project. So it's expected that they will determine where is the best place to do this. Any funds that they feel 20,000 is the right amount, but any funds that are not used will be returned to the CPC reserves.
And when they build those gardens, Jack, what's the size of them?
I don't know.
Okay, okay,
I have no idea, yeah.
okay.
One area that I know they're talking about would be putting a pollinator garden on top of the septic system at Tux Point, which is an area where you cannot park vehicles. There's just a couple of methane gas pipes coming up from there. And it's an area that has been thought about. Nothing has been determined yet. That has been one area. Some areas, maybe along Days Creek, over in Masconomo Park. That's just a couple of areas that have been bantered around. So the Conservation Commission, through Chris Bertoni, will determine the areas that are best to do this.
Thanks. Dean, do you have any questions?
I was wondering on the Winthrop Field drainage kind of jumped out. What is that for? Is that I mean,
Yeah, so yeah, no, that's a legitimate question. Last year, the Winthrop Field Committee, with all the water that we had in the summer, realized that they had a serious drainage problem to the point where they couldn't cut the fields like they normally do. They had an engineer come in, I think it was Al, who just moved from the
Rossi, isn't it?
Yeah, Ben Rossi, excuse me.
Ben
Yeah,
Rossi.
he's on that committee, and they came up and they determined that they would need $30,000 to put a proper drainage plan in. The Clara Winthrop Trust will pay $10,000. The Sweeney Park committee will pay $10,000 out of existing funds that they've raised, and they've asked us, and we granted or voted to grant an additional $10,000 for that drainage project.
Do you know do you know when that's happening?
Oops, sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear any of that.
I'm just curious, do you know when that's happening, the Winthrop Field drainage project?
Well, the funds become available after town meeting, and then I'm not sure when they're, if approved, when they will have a contractor available to do it. Mike Chapman could probably answer that better, and I can get that answer for you.
Yeah, no,
but
I don't want to take us down a rabbit hole, but I'm in a budding property, so that's why I'm very curious about it, to be honest.
Okay, I understand. Yeah,
So what was that name I should reach out to?
Mike Chapman.
And is he on the Winthrop Field Committee?
Yeah,
Yes.
he
He's
lives,
chair.
he
Thank
lives
you.
on Bridge Street. I'm right across from the old Corner Inn.
And
Great,
if
right
Mike,
there.
Suthon would also have that answer. I can get it for you.
Yeah.
But Mike is the right person to talk to.
Yeah, I saw those people actually when you said last, whatever it was, summer out on my property looking at the drainage ditches, and I wasn't notified, so that's why I really want to follow up. But anyways, that's a separate issue.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure they'll have to go to Conservation Commission and get approval to do what they have to do. Yeah.
Sarah, I just had a question.
Sure.
It sounds like a third of the funds for this overall project are coming from the Sweeney Park Fund. It seems like we're struggling to get Sweeney Park moving. I'm curious about that crossover there.
I
You
think
mean the Pine Street project?
No, I think you misspoke, Jack.
You missed, yeah.
The $10,000 is coming from the Winthrop Field Fund.
So there's a Clara Winthrop Fund and a Winthrop Field Fund?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Okay,
Got it.
that makes more sense. Thanks, Maury. Okay. Mark, did you have any questions, comments?
No, other than to thank Jack for coming on tonight with about 3 hours advance notice, because his explanations are far better than mine would have been. So thank you, Jack.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Jack.
You're welcome.
Dean, do you have any questions?
No, that
Nope.
was,
You're good. Andy, are you good?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you.
And Mike, you're good now?
Yep, I'm good now.
And Maury, are you good?
Yep, I'm all set. Thanks.
Do we want to vote on this tonight? To actually approve something?
Sure.
I'll take a motion.
I move we approve the CPC budget as submitted for, dare I quote the total, so it's $1,179,500.
Second.
Do I, second, Maury seconds. Okay, any discussion? I will take a roll call vote. Dean,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Thank you. We have something approved. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your support. See you at town meeting.
Thanks,
Okay,
Jack.
Thank you.
Bye now. Good night.
thanks. The next item on the agenda is the review of minutes, and I think Gail sent out 3 sets of minutes, but 2 of them were previously approved. So the only set that we have not yet approved are the ones from January 27th. Did people have a chance to look at those? It was the
That's the
police
one
department.
That's the one I read.
Oh, good. It was the police department operating capital budgets.
Yep, no, that was good. Good thorough
And-
discussion.
Anybody have any changes? Edits?
I didn't get a chance to review, unfortunately, so I'll just abstain.
Okay. Well, you weren't at the meeting anyway, so you can't vote on it.
There you go. Works perfectly.
There you go.
I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from January 27th, 2022.
So moved.
And the
I
second,
will second. Sure.
okay. I'll take a roll call vote. Dean,
Approved.
Andy,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Thank you. Like minutes to be approved. Next thing I wanted to discuss was the meeting for February 24th, and I put out an agenda. And so what I have on the agenda is that we would discuss long-range planning, 5 and 10 years of operating and capital budgets, discuss the budget impact of the additional position requests, both short-term and long-term for police, fire, and Board of Health. I thought we might discuss the budget impact of a dispatch decision. Greg, is the dispatch question going to be on the April meeting or a later meeting?
Well, the board's discussing that on Tuesday night at their meeting.
Okay.
I think it's leaning towards the June meeting, but it hasn't been finalized.
Okay. But anyway, I thought we might just kind of discuss the budget impact on the dispatch decision, whether it stays in-house or goes regional. And that was kind of it. Does that make sense to people? Are there things I should be adding into it?
No,
Yeah,
that sounds good.
Yeah, what I picked up on, I don't think fire is requesting additional people in their
Yeah,
budget.
we had no, it's outside of the budget.
Right. Yeah,
That's
okay.
the problem. Yeah,
Whether to staff 4 versus 3, that question, okay.
yeah, you got it. Okay, and then I thought that on March 10th, because we're taking a week off, the first, March 3rd, I thought on March 10th, maybe we could move to approve the 23 operating budget. I was hoping maybe we'd be ready to do it by then, if we discussed the long range and budget impacts next week. Does that make sense?
Was there an updated DPW iteration coming through?
Yeah, we'll have that for you. It's not huge. It's just it's a $14,000 adjustment.
Oh,
Okay. So do Greg and Andrea understand what we're looking for next week?
I believe so.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so we'll update the long range plan projections. I'll do a separate sort of list of sort of big ticket items that are potentially looming. We need to talk a bit about school.
Okay,
And There it is it's possible we are facing a pretty significant override request.
For this year?
No,
No, future. Okay, future.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think the other thing is like it under the fire request and that safer grant and all that kind of stuff, what the potential impact might be and what the
Yes.
scenarios are.
yeah, I sat down with the chief yesterday and we were working on a spreadsheet that shows the
Good.
different options and sort of the net impact of those
Okay.
options. So we'll have that for you.
Okay. Is there any other information that people feel we need to ask Greg to compile for next week? Okay. Get through this one way or the other.
Yes.
Is there any other business that somebody would like to raise that I didn't anticipate?
I have one thing. This is Andrea. Can you hear
Sure,
me?
Andrea.
Okay. So I was speaking with the auditors because I know that you usually have a meeting with them once a year around this time. You know, March.
Okay.
So they're only available March 3rd. So since we're not having a meeting then, I was thinking of pushing it off until April. And
Okay.
seeing what their availability is in April. And I didn't know if you want to start thinking of anything specific that you want them to go over or just do the standard going over the financial statements and the, management letter and OPEB and maybe have Dan come out as well.
No.
We all love OPEB, come on.
Are there any thoughts of the board of the specific things we would want the auditors to cover?
Yeah, I have one. This is Mike. I know they're auditors, so I know this is not 100% in their wheelhouse, but I'm sure they could still talk to it. Maybe just talk a little bit about, the rating, credit rating.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure they are. Right, this is an audit firm that specifically does municipalities, right? So.
Right.
Correct, yes, and they
So
do work
right.
with a lot of the bond councils and they sit on bond rating calls often as well, so they're well versed in that.
Great.
Anyone else have something they want the auditors to address?
Sarah, perhaps related, is this a Dan Sherman OPEB year or are we off? Is that next year? He always talks every 2 years about kind of rates and progress on our OPEB commitment.
I think Andrea was suggesting we might have them come in anyway. I think it's an off year.
It is, but they actually, like 2 years ago, they changed it, so now we have to do an annual update. So it's almost like we're having an annual
Okay.
actuarial, in essence. They don't have to do the full thing every other year, but they do have to do an annual update, so it is helpful to get the updated numbers.
Great, then we'd like him in.
Yeah, that would be really good for long-term planning. If not just huge dollars, it's just symbolic as to when that rolls off and other things might come onto the calendar. So it'd be good to hear that.
Good. Anything else?
I just have one quick question maybe for Mike. As far as the bond rating, is there anything specific or do you just want to generally go over bond ratings and comparable communities? How do you keep your bond rating up and things like that? Or just
Yeah,
something more
actually,
specific?
no, I didn't know whether to get into the weeds or specifics, but yeah, I guess specifically, I would like to talk about the connection between, the amount of free cash reserves versus the bond rating, right? In other words, like just a iterative process, like, okay, just for kicks and giggles, if we targeted 8% instead of our 10-12%, what would that mean, right? We go from a AAA to a AA, or, like that kind of a discussion.
Okay, all right, that's great. That's helpful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything else? Then I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Take a roll call vote. Dean,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes,
Mike,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Thank you very much.
Who seconded that, Sarah?
Maury.
Oh, thanks, Maury.
you couldn't hear him raise his hand?
No, not on my phone.
Okay, thanks a lot, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Sarah.
Night.
Thank you all.
Good
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.